The soldier's knock on the door is firm. There is no urgency, just finality. Inside, the richest man in Rome is dining with his wife and two friends. His name is Seneca. He is a philosopher, a playwright, a statesman, and he is the former tutor to the man who sent the soldier, Emperor Nero. The message is delivered without ceremony. The emperor, his former student, accuses him of treason and commands him to die. This is the ultimate test. What do you do when your world collapses? When the person you mentored, the monster you tried to control, decides to erase you? Do you beg? Do you rage? Do you fall into despair? Seneca does none of these. He turns calmly to his friends, asking them for their philosophical comfort. When they begin to weep, he gently reprimands them. Where is your Stoic preparation? Did we not practice for this moment? This was not arrogance. It was the result of a lifetime of training. Seneca was a man of staggering contradictions, a Stoic who preached simplicity, yet lived in obscene wealth, a philosopher of virtue who served a murderous tyrant. Because of this, his life was not a peaceful lecture. It was a relentless series of chaotic trials. And in that chaos, he forged the ultimate toolkit for resilience, not for how to avoid adversity, but how to master it. This is the story of Seneca and his secret to staying calm when your world is falling apart. Before we can understand his tools, we must understand the man. Lucius Annaeus Seneca was born in Spain, but his ambition brought him to the heart of the empire, Rome. He was a brilliant orator, a gifted writer, and a shockingly astute businessman. He amassed a fortune that would be worth, in today's money, billions of dollars. And this is the central paradox. How can a Stoic, a member of a philosophy that preaches against the desire for wealth, fame, and power, be the richest man in Rome? His critics called him a hypocrite, and they had a point. But Seneca's defense was subtle, and it's the first key to his mindset. He argued that Stoicism does not forbid having wealth, it forbids being enslaved by it. He treated his riches as indifference, good to have, but not essential to his happiness. He wrote that his wealth was a guest in his home, one he was prepared to see leave at any moment without complaint. He wasn't attached to it. It was a tool, but it was not his identity. This idea, this mental detachment from the external world, was a theory, a comfortable philosophy he practiced while living in his villas. Soon, fate would decide to test just how detached he really was. His first great trial was about to begin.
In 41 AD, at the height of his fame, Seneca's world collapsed for the first time. The new emperor, Claudius, influenced by his wife Messalina, accused Seneca of adultery with the emperor's sister. It was almost certainly a political setup. The sentence was not a fine. It was not a warning. It was exile. He was stripped of his titles, his property seized. He was banished to the harsh, remote island of Corsica. He went from being the center of the world to being a prisoner on a rock in the middle of the sea. This was a fate worse than death for a Roman elite. It was social annihilation. For 8 years he was trapped. The man who loved the crowds, the power, the intellectual buzz of the city, was now alone. It was in this desolation that Seneca the theorist was burned away, and Seneca the practitioner was born. He had 2 choices: succumb to despair or use the moment. He chose to use it. He turned his exile into the most intense philosophical training camp of his life. It was here he perfected his first great tool, the art of seeing clearly. He looked at his situation. I have been banished. This, he reasoned, is an external fact. My life is ruined is not a fact. It is a judgment, a story I am telling myself. He chose to tell a different story. He wrote, I have not been banished. I have been forced to change locations. He saw that his mind was still free, his intellect was still sharp. He could still think, and he could still write. It was on Corsica that he wrote On the Shortness of Life. This is the profound irony. A man in exile with nothing but time wrote the definitive text on how we waste time. He realized that in Rome he had been busy but not productive. He had been distracted but not focused. This tragedy of exile had given him the one thing he truly lacked: undistracted time to focus on what was important. He was learning to turn a curse into a gift. But his greatest tool, the one he would use for the rest of his life, was also perfected here. He called it Premeditatio Malorum.
This tool is Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. Put simply, he practiced negative visualization. Every morning, Seneca would sit and mentally rehearse all the things that could go wrong that day. He wouldn't just think, I might have a bad meeting. He would feel it. I will lose my wealth. I will be exiled again. My friends will betray me. I will be tortured. I will be ordered to die. This sounds like a recipe for anxiety, but its purpose was the exact opposite. It was a psychological vaccine. By suffering these events in his mind first, he achieved 2 things. First, he cultivated gratitude for everything he hadn't lost yet. Second, he desensitized himself to the shock of loss. If one of these events did happen, his mind was already prepared. He could face it with calm and say, I was expecting this. He was no longer a victim of fate. He was a prepared observer. And he would need this tool, because his exile was about to end, and his second, far more terrifying trial was about to begin. In 49 AD, Claudius's new wife, Agrippina, recalled Seneca from exile. It was not an act of mercy. It was a power play. She had a son from a previous marriage, a boy named Nero, and she wanted the most brilliant mind in Rome to be his tutor. Seneca was given an impossible task: take this volatile boy and mold him into a philosopher king. For 5 years, things were good. The first 5 years of Nero's reign, with Seneca as his advisor, were known as a golden age of stability. Seneca was back.
He was more powerful than ever, richer than ever. But he was tutoring a ticking time bomb. Nero's true nature began to emerge: the paranoia, the ego, the violence. Nero had his own mother, Agrippina, murdered. He had his wife, Octavia, executed. He burned Rome, or at least played his lyre while it burned, and blamed the Christians. This was no longer exile. This was a new kind of adversity. This was the moral adversity of compromise. What do you do when your student is a monster, when you are complicit in his regime? This is where Seneca's philosophy was tested to its breaking point. He tried to be a moderating influence. He tried to steer the ship, but he was advising a hurricane. He was trapped. If he spoke out, he and his family would be killed. If he stayed silent, he was enabling a tyrant. So he focused on his inner citadel. This is the Stoic concept that events cannot harm you, only your judgment of events can. Nero's actions were external. They were horrific, but they were Nero's choices. Seneca's only domain was his own choice, his own integrity. He tried to retire. Twice, Nero refused, smiling, assuring his old teacher he was loved. He knew it was a lie. He knew his time was short. He was the fly, trapped in the spider's web. He spent these years writing his greatest works, Letters from a Stoic. These were not abstract texts. They were urgent letters to a friend, written from the very center of the storm. They are practical guides on how to stay sane when the world is insane. He knew Nero would eventually come for him. He had lost his freedom. He was living in a golden cage. The only question was when the door would open for the executioner. He had premeditated this moment every single day. And in 65 AD, it finally happened.
The Pisonian conspiracy, a plot to assassinate Nero, was discovered. Nero, in a fit of paranoia, decided to clean house. He implicated Seneca, likely without any real evidence. The soldier arrived. The command was given. This is the climax of Seneca's life, the final test of his philosophy. His entire life had been a premeditation for this single moment. And he was ready. He was calm. He was rational. He comforted his weeping wife, Paulina, and his friends. He reminded them that a philosopher's life is a preparation for death. He asked for his will, but the soldier refused. So he turned to his friends and said, "Since I am prevented from showing my gratitude for your services, I leave you my one remaining possession and my most precious, the pattern of my life." He chose the traditional Roman method of suicide, opening his veins. His death was not easy. He was an old man, his body frail. The process was slow, agonizing, but his mind remained unbroken. To spare his wife the sight, he had her moved to another room. To spare his friends his own suffering, he dictated his final philosophical thoughts to a scribe, his mind clear to the very end. Finally, he was placed in a bath of hot water to speed the bleeding, and he died in a cloud of steam. His end was a performance. It was his final and greatest lecture. He proved that even in the face of death, ordered by a tyrant he had failed to control, a man can remain master of himself. Nero could take his life, but he could not take his tranquility.
He could not take his virtue. He could not break his inner citadel.
Why do we remember Seneca? He is not a perfect saint. He was a man of deep, uncomfortable contradictions. But that is why he is so important. We don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world of compromise, of chaos, of leaders we don't respect, and of events we cannot control. Seneca's philosophy wasn't written from an ivory tower. It was forged in exile. It was tested in the palace of a monster, and it was proven in the moment of his death. His legacy is not his wealth. It is his toolkit. Premeditatio Malorum. Prepare for the worst so you can handle what comes. The inner citadel. Know that only your judgments can harm you, not the events themselves. And the art of adversity. See every obstacle, every loss, every tragedy, not as the end of the story, but as the fire that tests the gold. Seneca's final lesson is this: you do not control your world. You do not control your fate. You only control your response. And in that response lies your freedom. These lessons from 2,000 years ago are more relevant today than ever. If you believe in the power of ancient wisdom to solve modern problems, subscribe to our channel for more stories just like this. And now, a question for you. In the comments below, which of Seneca's tools do you find most powerful for your own life? Premeditatio Malorum or the inner citadel?